Judge Andrew Napolitano joining us. Judge, how are you today?
I am great, Joey. Thanks. I missed you terribly between traveling and vacation. It's great to be back with you, my dear friend.
Great to have you on the show. It looks like you got a fresh tan there, too.
Well, you know, wherever I go, the sun sticks to my skin.
Well, and I appreciate you being the first guest in this way. We're now live streaming this show. So this is streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, across the interwebs. So I appreciate you being part of that, too.
Well, I noticed some different bells and whistles. I hope it all works out for you.
Yes, sir. So let's get right into the meat of things. Last week, I read your op-ed. And, well, who will keep our liberties safe? And it's one of these what-if styled articles, essays, if you will, that I think really lay out the entire situation we face, what we're supposed to be living up to, our ideals as a nation, and yet what our actual history as a country is, in particular our fealty to the Constitution. So who will keep our liberties safe?
Well, people like your next guest will keep our liberties safe, but he is Senator Tommy Tuberville. He is a rarity who believes that the Constitution means what it says, and when the Supreme Court says that abortion is up to the states, the feds should have nothing to do with it, much less providing it for free to people in the military. That's the short and direct and precise answer to lead into where I know where you want to go. The bigger answer is, and this is my column, which you'll get shortly, that comes out tomorrow night. Freedom lies in our hearts. If it dies there, if we no longer yearn for it, if we no longer elect to office people who will protect it, no constitution, no law, no court is going to bring it back. So the Congress, as an example, has enacted Section 702 of the FISA Act. It's about to expire at the end of this year. I can't imagine Senator Tuberville will vote to reenact it. But a lot of his colleagues will, because they're afraid of the ability of the NSA and the FBI to spy on them. This section of the law says that the Fourth Amendment does not apply to foreign persons in the United States or to the Americans with whom they communicate. And a judge on the FISA court, late Friday night, you probably didn't even see this in the newspapers or on the websites, revealed that after the FBI spies on foreign persons, they discover they're talking to an American, that data goes into a database. That database can only be accessed by a search warrant. Guess how many times FBI accessed that database in 2022 without a search warrant? 278,000 times. Where's the outrage? Where's the uproar? Where's the FBI agents being fired? Where's Chris Wray being grilled? Nowhere. Nowhere, nowhere, because we have lost the love of liberty in our hearts. We are not even outraged when these fundamental violations of the Constitution are brought to our attention. That's what I've been writing about for weeks, and that's what I'm writing about now. I'm actually on a bit of a campaign to persuade members of Congress to vote against reenacting Section 702. It's profoundly unconstitutional because it basically says the Fourth Amendment doesn't apply to foreigners. Okay, ask James Madison. It applies to persons, good people, bad people, Americans, foreigners, people the government hates, people the government fears. It applies to everybody. This was a George W. Bush piece of nonsense right after 9/11 when he was looking to blame 9/11 on people other than his sleepiness at the switch. And who did he blame? The Constitution.
The Constitution?
The Constitution, yeah. The Constitution held back the FBI and held back the NSA from spying. If the Fourth Amendment had allowed spying, 9/11 would never have happened. Well, if you had listened to your intelligence briefers, 9/11 wouldn't have happened, Mr. President. You took an oath to uphold the Constitution, whether you agree with it or not.
Amen. Well, and did you happen, as a quick follow-up, did you happen to see Christopher Wray, the FBI director, was asked about parallel construction? He feigned like, I don't even know what that is. I'll have to look into it, Senator.
Well, Chris Wray is not only not being candid as the director of the FBI, Chris Wray is a former white-collar criminal defense lawyer, and before that, a federal prosecutor. If he doesn't know what parallel construction is, then the moon is made of green cheese. He knows exactly what it is. And for those watching and listening, it is when the FBI or any federal or state agency acquires evidence by unlawful means, they then construct a mythical way to claim that they have obtained it and try and get the court to buy that. That's called perjury.
And yet they get away with it
Yes,
over
they do.
and over again. And you mentioned...
ask me how many of these FBI agents that access this data 278,000 times have been fired. It's an
How
easy
many of
number easy number to remember. 0.
None of them. It seems the government never holds any of its own accountable unless it's maybe to appease the crowd every once in a while.
Or unless you have somebody like Senator Tuberville, who's, I'll use the language of the streets, forgive me, sticking it to them.
Well, and I want to go there. And let's expand out on this because Coach Tuberville, Senator Tuberville, folks, will be joining us on the program at 2 p.m. He is now into several months into this hold on these flag officer promotions. I think it's over 200 people now. A lot of big names who probably deserve the promotions, but you think he is doing the right thing, the Madisonian thing that you would like to see more representatives and senators do?
I do. Because the Dobbs decision says that the federal government shall have nothing to do with abortion, that it's entirely up to the states. So if a federal military facility, whether it's in Alabama or New Jersey or California or Texas, wants to provide an abortion, it's up to the law of the state in which that place is located. Secretary Austin, himself a former 4-star general and I understand, a practicing Roman Catholic, does not take that view. He takes the view that the feds can give out all the free abortions they want. By the way, they also give out all these sex change operations, which I hope he targets next. Look, you own your own body. You can do what you want with it, but I'm not going to pay for it. The taxpayers are not going to pay for it. You want to butcher your body and find a doctor that'll do it? Go right ahead, but don't expect the government to pay for it. You want to kill the baby in the womb? I think the baby in the womb is a person. I would have written Dobbs differently. But the way Dobbs is now, the way the law of the land is now, abortion, which is a medical or a criminal matter, is exclusively a state issue. Want an abortion? Come to New Jersey. You can have an abortion up to the moment after birth in this horrible place.
Whoa. After birth?
Yes, you look at the baby and decide you don't want it. You can just let the baby starve to death right there in the tray in which they put the baby when the baby comes out of the womb. If you think that that life is worth saving, that every innocent life is worth saving, go to Alabama or Texas where these things don't happen.
Right. And well, I just appreciate Senator Tuberville's stand because a lot of folks are focusing on the issue of abortion itself. But I love that he is also adding to, hey, administrative state, in this case, the Pentagon and the DOD, you can't make these changes to the law unilaterally. You have to at least go through this body first. Correct.
Now, we happen to have a president who claims to be Catholic. Abortion is homicide in Catholic teaching. I think abortion is homicide everywhere, but that's my view. And this president could stop it with a phone call. This Secretary of Defense could stop it with a phone call. In fairness to the Secretary of Defense, he probably can't. He probably would be overruled by the White House. And in fairness to Senator Tuberville's adversaries, there are some extremely worthy people amongst those 200 waiting for their confirmations. But sometimes you have to do difficult and courageous things. I don't know him that well. The Tommy Tuberville I knew was a coach. But I believe that he is as courageous as some of the people he coached and as he was when he was a coach. And he ain't backing down.
Right. And well, my op-ed that came out today here locally is about how name calling is not going to scratch that guy's thick skin. I think I asked him years ago, you've got former players, people that you knew very well, folks you practically raised and from young adulthood into men, and they're saying all these nasty things. How does that make you feel? Trying to get him to be a little personal and emotional. He didn't care. He's like, I've been called every name in the book in my line of work. And I don't think D.C. understands that because usually, at least these days, politics is a game of pejorative and pillory, and
Correct.
it passes for debate. It's sad.
Correct. We live in a terrible state of affairs. The country is so divided. The last thing in the world the country wants is Trump against Biden. People are no longer outraged when the FBI violates rights. One of the stories, I'll tell you, one of the stories in this this information about the 278,000 was released by a federal judge on the FISA court who got sick and tired of this stuff. And one of the people who was surveilled was a state judge. For a minute, I thought it was a former state judge, but it wasn't me, because without mentioning the person's name, they described what happened. A sitting state judge sees violations of the Constitution by local law enforcement, complains to their superiors. The superiors tell him to take a hike. He complains to the FBI. What does the FBI do? They spy on the judge. Not on the people that he complained about, but on him. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Enough is enough. Well, Senator Tuberville needs to know about this. I'm going to guess that he does. I'm going to guess that he's on our side of all of this. But what the government has become is a monster totalitarian these days, when it knows it can get away with it.
Well, and this is why, from the conversations we've been having for years now, it's going on a while here with this tradition. Vivek Ramaswamy, at least what he's saying, has gotten my attention. Not reform the FBI, not reform 702, shut down the FBI.
Well, there's no authority for it in the Constitution. I mean, the FBI is a federal police force. There's no authority for it or for the DHS. There's no authority for 90% of what the feds do. But there's expressly no authority. Expressly no. Okay, that's an oxymoron. There is clearly no authority for a federal police department. What did Madison intend? Well, there's only 2 federal crimes authorized by the Constitution: treason, which is defined in the Constitution, and debasing the money supply, which is defined in the Constitution. All the other 5,500 federal crimes were intended to be addressed by the states. So the feds would have to go hand in hand to Alabama, to New Jersey, to California, to Nevada, and say, here's what happened. We need you guys to prosecute it. Rather than, we got 90,000 people in the DOJ. We'll prosecute whoever we want. We'll Bigfoot those state prosecutions. We'll even investigate the state judges that complain about us. That's where we are today.
It's just crazy times. I believe you said in your op-ed last week, what if the history of this country is our infidelity to the Constitution, and hit the nail on the head, even though it is a sour note, I think, for those who love liberty. We're running out of time here. If folks want to check out Judging Freedom, your podcast, what do you got coming up, and how can they find it?
Oh, I have the great Colonel Douglas McGregor at 2:00 Eastern today. There are so many events that have happened in Ukraine that you haven't heard about. Did you know that Ukraine officers are shooting soldiers in the back when they desert? And did you know that Ukrainian soldiers are deserting in groups because they don't want to be tossed into a meat grinder? No, you wouldn't know that, because if you listen to Joe Biden and if you listen to Jake Sullivan, if you listen to Tony Blinken, they're saying, oh, Putin has lost. He's on his way out. The war is almost over. They're right. The war is almost over. The Russians have triumphed already.
Well, that is a must watch, folks. Doug McGregor and Judge Napolitano back together on Judging Freedom, and I tend to watch on YouTube, wherever podcasts are available. Until next week, Judge, really great to be reunited. Great to have you back.
Right back at you, my dear man. Congratulations on the new format, and all my best. And give my best to that great United States Senator of yours.
Yes, sir, I will. Thank you, sir.
Of course.
Again,